Mary Habig says perfect. Chris says you got it, thanks. Chris says yes, that's correct. Got it, thank you, Macy. Okay, printing works, so we can work on it offline. Thank you for one page. Please provide PDF of build version. Okay, we would like one. PDF would be great. Build version. Okay, so I'm getting a lot of build version. Okay, so we will get that out to you. So that it might not be until next week, because we are going through the final walkthroughs of everything next week to make sure everything is where it should be, all the logic is working. So we will get you the presentation, the FAQ, the recording. We will start to upload all of the templates in the next few days so that you can go ahead and start pulling the authorizing resolution off, starts and assurances off, and start getting that stuff put together. But the actual PDF of the completed application might not be until Thursday of next week once we go through all of our walkthroughs. So just a little heads up on that. Carl Lucas, a little off topic. Due to a lack of 5310 vehicles, are there any discussed solutions such as extending appropriation expirations, changing the 55 capital 45 operating split, alternate sources of vehicles? This is a little off topic, but we got some time. So yeah, we have a white paper on how to maybe mitigate some of this the vehicle shortage issues. So, one thing is the Office of Transit on our website has actually created listings. So every time someone requests disposition of one of their vehicles, we actually put it on our website so that another entity can request that vehicle from that agency, and it can be transferred. So that way we're kind of recycling vehicles that have met their useful life and can no longer be used by the original awarded agency. We also have a form where if people have vehicles that they're not utilizing, they can fill out that form and let ODOT know that they have a vehicle. For example, GLCAP up in Northern Ohio had some MV1 vehicles they couldn't use, so we were able to distribute those to a new startup transit system. Southeast Area Transit in Eastern Ohio had some MMVs that no longer suited their operations, so we can consider those to other people. So we're using that process for people to submit vehicles they have that can be transferred, as well as for people who need vehicles to make requests. So that way we can represent both of those interests on our website, and people can view those and make connections for vehicles. So that's one thing we're doing to try to offset some of these situations. The other thing we're doing is encouraging people to consider increasing their preventive maintenance budgets and running vehicles longer. So basically re-looking at their preventive maintenance plans, maybe servicing vehicles more frequently, looking how vehicles are utilized in your routes, and making sure the mileage is being distributed evenly. So really that's kind of like looking inwardly at your operations and your procedures and how the vehicles are being utilized and trying to extend their life. In terms of extending appropriation expirations, two things. I've talked to FTA about this. One, I feel that the appropriation should have been extended for CARES funding anyway, because we were instructed to use all the stimulus funds first, and so therefore our formula funds weren't being obligated, but they never extended the lapse year on them. So now, we're like, oh crap, we have all this money we have to use quickly. So that's issue number one, in my opinion. But issue number two then is, you mentioned the 55-45. They did away with that in like ARPA and stuff like that. So, we're trying to use that strategically, but there's been no talk on the formula side of them modifying that in any way. And brought up the extending the lapse year, they were like, yeah, right, like that's a HQ decision and it's unlikely to happen. So to answer your question, that's probably not going to happen. alternate sources of vehicles. I don't know if you mean like being able to procure your own vehicles locally or buying used vehicles. Those are all things that we've considered. It becomes incredibly burdensome to use federal funds to purchase used vehicles, especially, or procure vehicles because of the extensive procurement requirements for vehicles. That is why ODOT has a state vehicle term contract, because we go through the entire procurement process so locals don't have to, because that's how intense it is. So, you know, it's unlikely that we would allocate any federal funds towards purchasing vehicles from, you know, a alternate source, but I guess, you know, you really could request state funds. We could consider state funds for some of those options. You know, if you are in a really bad spot with your vehicle fleet, you need a really quick fix, or you're a new startup who has no vehicles but wanted to start public transit next year and can't get vehicles in your fleet. You know, those kinds of cases are where we would probably consider or prioritize some of those maybe more flexible funding options. So I don't know if that's answering your question or not, but that's the best I got. The vehicle situation is pretty unfortunate for sure. Yes, the maintenance and price, so we will know balance. Okay, Gary, I'll get that. Okay. Okay, Christopher, the narrative examples were helpful in the presentation today. Could you provide model examples of approved project narratives from this year's LOI, which would fall under each category? Could these be provided next year for consideration in developing our LOI and application? Absolutely. We can provide redacted, you know, examples of prior applications and budgets, like a kind of like a full version and not just like one example of salaries and wages. I have a couple of examples that I can provide. We'll talk internally. We might put that under the related documents, some of these best practices examples. I know WANA, for example, has some best practices for like when you're addressing ridership impact, equity, and all those kind of narrative questions on your projects. She has some best practices for those. So some of those examples we can put under the related documents section on our website so that you can download them and view them, if that would be helpful. Sorry, just making notes. Okay. Okay, so that looks like that is the end of the questions that have been submitted in the questions pod. And we're about 15 minutes until the end of the webinar. So just to reiterate, these questions and the answers will be put into an FAQ document and provided to you. So that way, if you need to, you don't quite remember what I said to some of these questions, we will document that for you. And if we receive any questions via email, we will also include those in the FAQ if we receive them before it is published. And then you can expect the recording, copy of the presentation, and FAQ by the end of this week. And then we will get out the PDF of the build version, which has all the fields, out to you by the end of next week ahead of the application being released. We will notify you once the templates have been uploaded in the related documents section, in case you want to go ahead and get a head start on some of those as well. I just want to do like a last call for any questions. We do have 13 minutes left. We can end early, of course. I'm sure a lot of you would love some of your day back if there are no more questions, but I just want to make sure. Okay, I'm not seeing any. Chris, Alex, Juana, do you have absolutely anything that you want to add before we sign off for today?
No.
I do not.
I don't have anything either.
Okay, well, thank you all so much for attending today. Please remember to do the evaluation if you have any positive feedback or maybe some suggestions for the future. Um, Mason asked, is this session, oh wait, it left, it's gone. Is the session at 1 the same as this one? The session at 1 is for more geared towards people who are not public transit providers. So for example, I don't talk about the technical assistance, I don't talk about system profile, things like that. So if you attended today or this morning, you do not need to attend at 1 because it's going to be the same information, but just a little bit less. Things that don't apply to people who are not public transits. Okay. So with that, thank you everybody for attending today, and reach out if you have any questions.